everything is up and running. I thought I had everything figured out. But this is the way of life where you just kind of figure things out as you go. And I think that's all right. Well, welcome, friends. It's another episode. Keep saying episode. Another session of Let's Draw Together with Sean Z. That's me. I'm Sean Z, and I'm so excited that you are going to spend some time with me tonight as we talk about learning how to draw portraits, specifically profile portraits. There are profile portraits all throughout art. It's very wonderful. They used to have these things way back in the Victorian era where they would have portraits of people made out of ivory carvings, and they were just absolutely gorgeous little artifacts that, maybe you can find them in an antique store every so often. And, I remember growing up, one of the pieces of art that my mom had from her childhood, or maybe it was my dad, it was one of them. It's been a while, but they had a cutting of the profile. And so today I'm going to examine and break down how to draw a profile. I got a great question recently from a buddy of mine named Cody, thank you for the question, Cody, and I'm going to go over that question tonight in the drawing lesson as well. And so I'm super excited. A couple of announcements. I launched my website today. The URL is letsdrawtogether.com. It's totally a ready, fire, aim project for me. I've been trying to work it in the background. And, for me, I like to make a little bit of a mess first before I clean up. That's kind of my artistic process, and maybe it's kind of my life process. Hola, Casa Amazonas. What's up? Welcome. I like to make a little bit of a mess before I get cleaned up, and so the website is live and it is going. Other couple of announcements. Well, let's talk about our tools for success. We'll do that. So today I'm back on the newsprint paper. I'm going to be just doing a lot of loose newsprint sketching. I've been having a lot of fun with pastels lately, so I busted out some old chalk pastels that I've had. You can see I've got yellow, white, brown, dark blue, light, medium blue, red, light blue, and green. I think, this was an era of my life when definitively, most assuredly, and succinctly correct, if you had said that blue was my favorite color. Now I'm kind of tending toward the warmer colors, the oranges and the yellows. But you know what? Such is the way of life. It's progress. And those are funny because they're opposites on the color wheel. But anyway, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some chalk pastel techniques as well with the profile picture. The other tool for success, this is actually just a wet paper towel. Since I'm out of neoprene gloves, I busted my last one with my last episode. I'm going to get this stuff all over my fingers. And so not to discourage you from making art, I want to make sure that you're making art at home and enjoying the process. But, what can happen is it gets on your fingers and gets on your clothes and gets on your furniture and gets on the cat and then gets on the dog and it gets on your spouse. And then it's just kind of all over the place. You're like, man, I'm not making art because it's messy. Well, let's beat that problem with a wet paper towel. Sound good? All right, guys. Well, other than that, I'm so excited that you're here with me. I've got the availability to read and interface with you through the different chat boxes that are out there. Happy Cinco de Mayo for those of our Mexican friends or Mexican descent, or if you just are, you love a Mexican or anything like that. Happy Cinco de Mayo. It's a great celebration for them. And I'm excited that it's today also. I'm also excited that it's no longer, I don't have to hear any Star Wars jokes. Not that I'm some like Ebenezer Scrooge curmudgeon. Hey, Annabelle. Not that I'm some Ebenezer Scrooge curmudgeon, but I'm just kind of like, you know what? Enough of the Star Wars jokes. Okay. And enough of me talking. Let's learn a little thing or two about drawing a profile. So today I want to go back to one of the first lessons that we had, which is talking all about shapes. So I'm going to start up here and I'm going to just draw a circle. The circle represents the ball of the head. You can see if you look at my head that it's pretty much just a dome with a, with a shovel on it. So I'm going to break this thing down into its constituent parts. And now it's a ball. And that ball can rotate. It can rotate down like this, or it can rotate up. And it's the same thing. If you're drawing, my eyes are looking up and my eyes are looking down. So it's rotating. Now what I'm going to do is basically from the eye line or the top of the brow line, I'm going to come down. I'm going to draw a rectangle. That's pretty much here to here. That's it. That's the rectangle. That's going to represent basically the side of the face. Okay. And now I'm going to start drawing a series of triangles, because really, if we think about, a lot of the things that we see, they can be broken down into these basic shapes: triangles, squares, circles, you name it. And the face is the same way. So for instance, I'm going to draw a triangle here, and that's going to represent the eyelid. Actually, I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm going to draw a triangle here, and that's going to represent the nose. I'm going to draw a triangle here, and that's going to represent the mouth. And then I can draw a bigger triangle here, and that's going to represent the cheeks, just like that. So you can see I've added 4 triangles to the piece of paper on top of the circle, on top of the square. And that's pretty much my guiding point. Now I can also, if I want to get real granular, I can divide that triangle in half, and now here I am. I've got a person, or pretty much the workings of a person, right? Okay, now let's talk about a couple of other milestones that I'm going to add. Right here behind this line, this is really kind of where the ear begins. So I'm going to just draw a big letter C right here, big letter C. And that's pretty much going to represent where the ear is in reference to the head. If you look at my side, you can see, pretty much the ear is between my face and the back of my head like that, just like that. I'm going to get down here into the neck. I'm just going to draw a straight line here. And I'm going to draw an invisible rectangle just like that. I might throw that back here just a little bit bigger. Yeah, there we go. That works. That looks just right to me. Okay, so there's a basic head. And you can see I did that pretty quickly with some pretty easy shapes that I think just about anybody can draw. And this stuff isn't rocket science, but it is a lot of fun, and it does take some skill and some patience and some practice. So, I was reading this book this morning. It's called Zen and the Art of Leadership or something like that. And it was talking about conquering haste. And so, kind of the thing that I want y'all to be contemplating tonight as we think about learning to draw the face is, let's conquer haste a little bit. Let's take our time. We're not in a rush. We're just going to enjoy the process. Okay. So there's a couple of different things going on in the face. And one of the things that I love about having different colored chalk pastels is that I can change colors on the fly, and I can show you a couple of things. Let's see. I wonder, is green going to show up? Is green going to show up and look different? It's going to look different enough. Okay, maybe try yellow. Let's see what yellow does. I don't know if you can see that or not. You can see it on YouTube. You can't see it on Instagram. Okay, so we're going to go back to green. 2 cool colors, and then I'll end with a warm. So here's the eyeball. And notice that the eyeball pretty much sits at the edge of where that circle of the head is. That's going to tell me a lot of things. It's going to tell me where this person is looking, because I can look up, I can look down, I can look at the camera, I can look away from the camera. And the way that I'm drawing this particular portrait is it's just a pretty much square on side portrait. So I'm going to take it, I'm going to draw it out here just so you can see how I'm affecting this technique. So I'm actually drawing a little bit of an oval here on top of the ball, right? And that's just going to represent the bump in the iris, just like that. Yeah, there you go. Because if you look at somebody, the actual eyeball shape is closer to that than it is just a round circle. So just a little detail. Don't get all hung up about it, but that's just, you know, a little pointer, a little success thing. Okay, so I've got the ball. All right, now I'm going to get in here and I'm going to start refining elements and kind of helping you understand the different lines and what they are. So right around here, right around the mouth, you've got a circle of muscles. And these muscles help us go and talk and articulate our lips. Now, imagine, if you would, that there's actually a skull sitting underneath this person's head, right? So just imagine, if you would. It's a little morbid, I know, but you know, such is the way of life. But basically, there's a skull, and it's a mouth full of teeth sitting either side, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm basically thinking about where that skull is, and these lines that I'm drawing represent how the face, or how the muscles of the face, are sitting on top of those bones. So I'm going to do this here. Yeah, just like that. So this is fun. Yeah, you know, 20-year-old me would have been all about this lesson. I liked, you know, I was probably typical dude at 20 years old. I like drawing skulls. You know, I don't know, that's probably not a real typical thing. I worked as a tattoo artist when I was about 19, 20, and 21 years old. That was an interesting time. Anyway, so what I've done is I've kind of gone in here. You don't have to do this if you're actually doing the portrait, but just so that you can see how things are and why things start to kind of do what they're doing. So the ball sits in kind of the C shape of the eyeball socket. We've got this forehead ridge that comes out here on the face. It's actually kind of separate from the dome of the skull. So it's its own little bone mass that protrudes. Some people's it comes up a little bit higher. Some people it goes down a little bit lower. But it's a nice little bone ridge that acts in a way as like a visor to our eyeballs. Some people have very pronounced ones. Typically males have more pronounced ones. Typically females have less pronounced ones. Their foreheads tend to be a little bit flatter. But there are females that have large forehead brows, and there are males that have small forehead brows. It's just it's an artist's kind of reference point, so to say. Okay, so this is the brow bone. This is the cheeks. So I've got kind of the front of this, you know, eye skull structure here, kind of coming around. Kind of looks like this from the front, right? Looks kind of like a punk rock patch in the making, but it's not, I promise. At least I hope not, because, man, that would be... Talk about the patent of patents. If you can get that IP, boy, you're in good shape. But nonetheless, that's what this is here, and that's really where the nose and the cheek meet. There's kind of an intersection point there. We've got here, you know, this nostril piece with a little lip that comes out. And then we've got the cartilage that sits on top of that. And then our nose sits on top of these cartilage pieces so that we're able to have soft tissue and muscle and a little bit more flexibility. You know, if our noses were a hard bone, we wouldn't be able to do this, which would mean, like, if you like to snuggle somebody, or if you got a pet or a dog or something like that, this would be painful. So I don't know about you guys, but I got a kind of a big old bulbous nose. I like that because I can really get in there and do some fun stuff like that. But that's all because I've got cartilage there and not hard bone. Okay, the teeth tend to protrude a little bit. They come down a little bit, but then they bump out ever so slightly. If you look at the side of someone's face, the lips are sitting on top of the teeth bones, and they're being pushed forward by the muscle that moves the mouth around. It's pretty much just all muscle. There's like hardly any fat in this area. It's just muscle with skin on top of it. Okay? Then we get into the neck. You know, I'm here in the skull. I've got this ear hole here where all the sound goes into and I'm able to hear. And that's fun. I like that because I love music. I'm sorry if you cannot hear. Music sure is great. And I'm sorry you don't get any of it. Hopefully you can feel it. There was a composer back in the day named Beethoven who got to, he composed music later in his life simply by feeling the sound. And that was pretty beautiful. I knew a couple of deaf kids growing up and they still listen to music, so that's okay. All right, foot in my mouth kind of moment. Anyway, so there's how that goes, and then you've got the skull kind of comes back here, and then you've got these neck bones that go down, and that allows us to go down here like this. Now, typically what you see when you actually see a neck go down, it's not quite a rectangle. It's more of like a protruding shape here backward, and almost like a triangle, right? Because you've got a couple of different things going on. You've got a trapezius muscle here in the side, and you've got these support neck muscles to the side, which allows us to have movement for our head. Actually connects here. There we go. That's what I was looking for. Just like that. And that kind of goes out like that. So that looks like a whole big old mess to me. And if you're just now coming around, you're like, well, what am I even looking at? Okay, fair enough. That's a good question. Well, now I'm going to take the red, and the red is going to be, I think, incredibly visible because on top of the blue and then on top of the green, I've got two cool colors, and then I've got a warm color. And so just so you understand something about color theory, the way that our eyes are designed, warm colors come forward toward the viewer, and cool colors go back away from the viewer. And that's because, you know, by hook or by crook, the design of our eyes is meant to see bright, vivid colors, like specifically fruits, right? And so if we can focus on a bright, warm color that's maybe a fruit, we can find food a lot easier and eat and stay alive. So that trait still sticks with us. Okay, let's use some red. So I'm going to go in and I'm just going to kind of start defining some of these points that I've already drawn. Here's the chin. Oh, this red stick is kind of hard. And now I'm going to just kind of show how this lip comes up. The lip is a soft bit of tissue. It's very flexible. Typically, when you're drawing a lip, there's a couple of different things that you can do. Most people, I think, just do the typical Cupid's thing here, and I think that's fine. But not everybody's lip looks like that. In fact, most people's lips don't look like that. Some people have big upper lips and thin or big lower lips, thin upper lips. Some people have thick upper lips, thin lower lips. So it really just kind of depends on the person that you're trying to draw. Some people have the same, so on and so forth. This red is needs to get warmed up. Warmed up for me. Okay, so I'm here. Now this guy, I'm just gonna give him some good old fashioned lips here. Just like that. Now notice when I bring the line that's on the outside up, I'm going to use that to define this piece of muscle right here as it comes out. This is all pretty much one piece, and the lip is the ending of that. So when I'm drawing, I think a lot of people add too much busyness to it, and so it just doesn't read as well. So if you make that the same line, in my opinion, it reads slightly better as a drawing. Just like that. So it's kind of one, you know, you're really drawing an M out here and then going back in and defining what it is that you're seeing. Okay. Now, one thing that I like to do, and maybe it's just a trait that I see because I'm getting older and I see it in myself, is I like to add this piece here that's called the nasolabial crease. It goes all the way from the top of the nostril into, you know, this kind of side of the mouth. Some people get it here, just like that, a little bit. I can make that real nice and defined. Okay, Now I'm going to kind of show you some nose tricks here, because this is where I think a lot of people get confused. So let me talk about the anatomy of the nose real quick. Is that legible? Yeah, you can see that. Hey, Lynn, what's up? Let's talk about the anatomy of the nose real quick. So I know that the nose is basically built on a triangle, right? Okay, cool. Can't even color within the lines on my own show. That's okay. So I know that the nose is built on a triangle, but there's some features to the nose that I want to talk about. First of all, a lot of noses have this kind of riser thing that come up right here to connect to the lip, right? That may be part of the cartilage coming down, or it may just be extra material on the nose. Some people have a real pointy nose right here. Some people have kind of a square nose like that, where maybe the tip comes out. Some people have a more rounded nose like that. You know, like for me, myself, I've got a nice round nose at the end, just like that. Some people have that more angular. Some people's noses point down, like this, and some people's noses point up. Maybe not like that, but they slope out a little bit more forward than they do downward, and so it kind of creates a different effect. So you've got this tip here of the nose, and there's really a lot of variety here that you get. Then you get into the bridge, and the bridge can have all sorts of variety too. You can have, you know, a bump, a ridge here in the nose that's real high, like this. You know, especially if they've got a lot more bumps. I used to draw noses like this long time ago, where it was real bumpy, just because I thought it was, you know, more cool. It had a lot more things going on, so it was more interesting to look at. Or you can have a straight bridge, or you can even have maybe a bridge that goes down a little bit and curves up, because some people do have nose bridges like that, especially younger people. You know, if you look at children's noses, if you want to draw some of them, they tend to not have so much modeling up here, and it goes down. Then we'll talk about the nostril. So the nostril comes in all different shapes and sizes. It can be tiny, it can be big. It's basically this piece right here, that the flap, I guess, is the side of the nose. If I'm drawing it, it kind of looks like a, I wonder if that might do. Still not good. Okay. Let's switch it up. I'm going to go brown. Stay with the warm colors. There we go. Can we see the brown? We can see that. It's actually orange. Cool. All right. So the nose kind of does something like this, or at least the top of the nose does. It's kind of this weird, like, flame shape. Anyway, go back over here. Clean this stuff up here. Now, so I got a nice, this looks like a Danish nose. I know a guy, I think Christian is Danish. Anyway, he's got a nose that looks like this, and it's like, oh man, you look like a 14th century Flemish painting, you know, maybe 15th, 16th, whatever, doesn't matter. Okay, so let's talk about the nostrils. So nostrils, there's a lot of variety here. The nose is probably one of the most dynamic features of the face, because everybody's nose is different. Eyes, eyes maybe not so much variety. Lips, yeah, a little bit of variety. But there's something about the nose that just, you know, I don't know, the nose knows, you know. There's just so much that you can do with it. Little nostrils, big nostrils, you know, in between, all kinds of things. When I draw side profiles like this, I like to think about the overall shape of the nostril. So for me, my nostril kind of comes down like this, right? Because my nose is like that. So when you look at a nose, try to see what types of shapes there are. Maybe it's a square with a little bit of triangle on there like that. Or maybe it goes down and like that, right? And you got a nose that's, you know, maybe that's higher like that. There's all sorts of different possibilities with noses. So, you know, as you're going about your day, you know, anybody in your life, take a look at them, take a look at the profile, and just kind of break down the different elements of the face that you're seeing. Maybe they got a bumpy nose. Maybe they got a straight nose. Maybe they got, a nose that dips down. Who knows? It's interesting. But pay attention to that and try to figure out what the lines are doing. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead, boop, boop, boop. Go ahead and do the nose. And there we go. And then this nose is going to ride the ridge of the face. Here like that. Boop. And that's why I wear the apron, so I can keep it off my clothes. Bam. Oh yeah, you know what? I should probably say another tool for success in the art world, in my opinion, is a good apron. If you don't have a good apron, some good paint clothes that you don't really care about, and that's just fine. There we go. Yeah. Okay. So now let's talk about how the skin wraps over the eye, because at this point I've done the chin, the base of the lips, and the nasolabial thing, all this business that's in here, the nostril, do a nice nostril there. Let's talk about how the eye wraps, right? So the eye pretty much starts, it depends on how deep the lids are. So I'm going to do some deeper lids though, just because I got deep lids and kind of use what you know, right? The wrapping of the eye, the way that you can think about how skin wraps is it's starting in a line and then it's going up and around a ball, right? So when I'm looking at how the lines are that I'm using, I need to be thinking about the way this skin is wrapping over this ball here. So when I think about that, I'm going to do some curvy lines. Oop, just like that. Oop, just like that. Okay? Maybe I can come forward just a little bit because that eyeball piece is, maybe he's looking up. Yeah, he's looking up. There we go. C is for cookie, And then this guy's got eyes here. And then on top of that, that's where we'll get into the eyebrow, right? And the eyebrow, again, there's some variety there. Typically, though, the eyebrow follows the shape of the skull. Some people's eyebrows go up and are kind of pointy. They look kind of like a cartoon character's. Maybe it's very dramatic. Some people like to have high eyebrows like this, or they might paint them on, and that's okay. That's just how they like to represent themselves. But, for the most part, you can represent most eyebrows by just kind of doing a line here, boop, 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 just like that. Kind of thicker on the front piece, thinner on the back piece. So I could do just a little triangle and then a rectangle. Nice, nice. Okay, but give it some curve because it is on an organic surface. Okay, so this is going to wrap the head on down the neck. And I'm going to draw an ear. Now, the ear I drew first was a circle. This time I'm going to just kind of draw a six-sided shape. That way it's not totally too predictable. There we go. Actually, you know what? I'm going to bring that forward. Just like that. There we go. Okay. Now, this part, this is kind of a whole mess. I'll clean it up. When I do the second example, you'll see what I mean. There will be less business. This part is for Cody, right? So let's think about hairlines. Hairlines trace the shape of the head, right? So how I'm drawing this particular hairline is it's going and it's wrapping the forehead, actually back behind the forehead. You've got different muscles here on the front of the face, and then you've got no muscles here on the scalp. I mean, some people can kind of move their scalp backward and forward, and that's a neat party trick and everything, but it's not articulated like what you can do with your forehead like that, right? So I think that that's really where the hairline begins, is where the muscle skin and the non-muscle skin kind of where they meet, right? That's where you see the hairline. Now, for people who are having a receding hairline or are going bald, you'll see the hair moving deeper into the non-muscle part. You can even see on my own forehead, you got lines here. What's up, Big Harv? You got lines here, and you got just some clean skin there. So that line would actually go back here to represent where the actual hairline is. But it's different muscle and different skin here where that is than where the actual hair is, okay? And then, all right, so now let's talk about what hair is. Well, hair is a three-dimensional object. Yes, it's very thin, but hair sits on top of other three-dimensional objects because that's just the way that hair is. It's a 3D object. So anytime you're thinking about hair, it's going to sit on top of whatever it's resting on. So I'm just kind of drawing some, this looks kind of like a Street Fighter guy. We'll make that there like that. Give him a little bit of a shaggy haircut because he hasn't been able to go to his barber. And I know that everybody wants to go get their hair did. But you know what? I kind of like it. It makes me feel like the 1970s, kind of fun. And I'm going to do a little curl here just for fun, just for dramatic effect. Okay, so notice that I'm building the hair off of the skull. And I'm kind of doing lines that follow the shape, but I'm not really concerned about elements like, I'm not, hair is coming off the skull and going its own directions and doing its own things. Now, hair typically groups like this, or you'll get some things. If you do, individual hair strands, that's neat, especially if you like Japanese art. They tend to do a lot of hair like that. You might see anime where they have, that more choppy look here. If that's the way that you want to draw hair, hey, nothing's going to stop you. Me, myself, I kind of like to do the big shapes here like this, and then I kind of do a little bit of both, where I follow the shape with the lines, and then I go back in and start to add my shading to build value on top of things. So notice I turned my stick on the side, so now I can do a technique called scumbling, which allows me to do fun things like that. So yeah, gosh, wow, what a mess. So let's get into something that's a little bit more, maybe say legible, a little bit more understandable. So I've got a reference that I'm going to use tonight. And now that we've understood where everything kind of shows up, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just do a profile. Now, some of y'all saw me post this profile as a pen and ink drawing earlier. Let's see. But I'm going to go back to the actual reference and walk you through how I constructed it. And I think that'll be a fun way to end our evening because we are at about halfway. Thank you for joining me. If you have any questions or comments, please let me know. Let me know if you have any references that you want me to use or issues that you want me to tackle. So from here, I'm going to lay down the ball of the head, and I'm going to do the length of the face, just like this. Now, because I'm using a specific reference at this point, I'm going to try to match the lines up pretty well of what I'm seeing, right? So, I know where the constituent parts are, and I know that basically everything is going to fall into the same pattern, but the difference is in the size. That's where stuff's going to matter, right? Because, some people have big lips, some people have small lips, some people have big chins, so on and so forth. Now, notice I'm being real loose here. I'm really not worried about details at this point. So I'm going to turn my brightness up. There we go. There we go. Okay. I'm going to turn my brightness up. Boom, just like that. Boom, just like that. Okay. There we go. And I'm really just exploring to find the lines that I need to use in order to build this face. And yep. Just like that. There we go. All right. Yeah. Oh, here's an interesting little detail. Okay. So I'm here on this side here, and you can see just a little bit of the eyelid on the far side of the bridge of the nose. Now, not all portraits or not all profiles are specific, like dead rights, square arm profiles. Every once in a while, you'll get a remnant of part of the face. So maybe it's the other cheek on the other side of the lips. Maybe it's part of the brow as it wraps around the head, right? That's just kind of the way that this stuff goes, because we're three-dimensional objects. And, you know, when you're drawing, you're representing 3D on a flat surface, or for the most part. Not to say you always are, but that's kind of the idea behind it. Okay, so what I like to do is, you know, especially when I'm getting things set up, I like to use the same lines, the same directional lines, so that way things are staying consistent with my shapes, right? So, but I'm only going to draw the side that's closer to me. I'm not going to draw both sides, okay? All right, so let's talk a little bit about what I did. In this particular model, her eyes are looking down. She's looking at an object down here. And so, you know, as I was talking about the eye, I'm wrapping the outside of the lid first. It's just a little tiny bump. You know, that line will probably go away eventually, but now I'm wrapping it, and now I'm creating kind of a triangle that goes out from it. And that gives me the eyelashes, or the idea of the eyelashes. Just like that, okay? And just like this on this side, I'm gonna do the same thing. I do the eyelashes on the far side as well, because, you know, you can see that little bit of information. When you actually look at somebody's profile, you can see that little bit of information every so often. All right, so the nostril here. Her nostril isn't that low. Okay. Get rid of that. Yep, okay. Got the top lip here. Pretty much all lips are going to have a little bud here. Some of them won't, but pretty much all of them will, because that's, you know, just the way that they do. Here we go, just like that. Okay. Yep. All right. And I've got pretty much everything that I need for her face to be down. Notice I'm kind of being sketchy with some things. I'm not like, I'm not really crazy about doing something like, oh, that's it, perfect. You know, I might have to find it. You know, I might have to say, that's it. Oh, wait, no, it's actually back over here. That's cool. A lot of the old masters, I mean, everybody, you got to learn, you got to figure out where things are. And that's part of the process. You know, just like I was saying earlier, the mantra of this class is to take your time. We're gonna conquer haste, and art is really a wonderful tool with which to do that, because this stuff takes time. You know, it's a process. You got to build it down or break it down. All right, so I've got pretty much all of her face down. I'm going to go ahead and start to define some secondary elements, just so you can kind of understand where I'm going with everything. So this is just a sweater, you know, kind of an open sweater thing. just like that. So in this particular model's sake, I don't actually have an idea of her neck, but I've drawn enough heads and necks to kind of have a general idea that it looks like that. But it doesn't really matter. To me, I don't really care because I'm not worried about it. I'm going to draw what's on top of there. So now let's get into, and this is really the big part of it, and this is the secret sauce of the whole lesson. I'm going to be real loose and kind of gestural with my drawings, but as you can see, I'm starting out just thinking about wrapping triangles around her head, right? Some of the triangles start down here and then they go around. I'm pretty much wrapping triangles around her head. At least that's the way her hairstyle is being worn. Wrapping triangles down. And these triangles are kind of getting pointy that way. Wrapping triangles down here. Now, what I really want to do instead of doing each individual piece, I want to start and do the whole kind of chunk, the whole mass that I'm seeing, so that I can understand what my eye is looking at, right? And I want to do the whole shape because my eyes see the whole shape first, and then I can kind of, oh, okay, that's hair, that's what that's doing. Oh, okay, that's what that is. And notice all my lines are pretty much wrapping the shape. Some of them, now this part here isn't, but that's okay. You don't know what I'm drawing yet. So here's this hair, it's combed back, sitting back, nice, just like that. Her hair part is right here. Okay, yeah. Pretty happy with that. Are you guys happy with that? I hope you're happy with that because I'm happy with it. And I think that, oh, just move on. So boom. Oh, I love that. Oh, I just love that I can do that. Yay. It's like a power washer that just, backwards power washer. Pretty cool. All right, this isn't part of the lesson. This is just me freestyling because it's fun. I love doing this stuff. Okay, all right. I'm gonna take it cool now. I know I said that warm colors and cool colors and all that stuff, but I'm gonna take it cool because that's just the way that I do. And always, I'm constantly refining. Constantly refining. If I do something that I don't like, it's okay. It's no big deal. Okay. Now, this is her throat. You can see her throat is a tube that's connected to her mouth. On the side of her throat, she's got these muscles that help support her neck. So when I actually get into the specific details of what I'm drawing, I want to make sure that I understand the anatomy underneath as well, not just the bones and things, but what's going on in the softer tissues as well, right? Because that's going to help me understand. And as I make my marks and define things, I'll have a better idea of why I'm making these marks to define the way that I am. Okay? So just like this, boop, boop, got the mouth. And there we go. Okay. Don't want to get too eager. Other detail, right? So there's this kind of piece of muscle where the lips close. Right? Some people it's very pronounced, some people it's not. For some people that line goes up, for some people that line goes down, for some people it's just straight. So just little details as you make your marks in your own art. Now, okay. Now she's got 2 of these pretty good. Yeah. Just like that. Notice, see, that's the best part about doing an underdrawing. I had another friend of mine, Gabe, his girlfriend likes to do watercolor. She's actually a good help to me. Many of y'all have bought some of these fabric masks from me, and it's actually her handiwork that has gone to make these things a reality. So I'm very happy that I know both of them in my life. But anyway, so, you know, having an underdrawing though, and this was a question that we had kind of early on, was, you know, how do you do the underdrawing? Where do you do it? You know, what's its purpose? So on and so forth. Well, this is kind of where you do it, and it's very forgiving. You can see it's very forgiving. I'm able to make mistakes, make pretty good mistakes, because right now my model has a unibrow, but when I add these new colors, she ain't gonna have a unibrow anymore. I like that. I like that. It's gonna look like a regular, good old-fashioned, classy gal. Yeah, there we go. Got eyebrows. Now, how you do the eyebrow lines, I think, is important, especially if you are all about the lines. If you want to just treat them as shapes, go do it. When I do mine, I have a tendency to break the lines out. And when you notice, the hair doesn't all go like in the same direction. Typically, the hair distributes itself over the shape of the brow ridge, and it's got a lot more volume as you look at it. So, you know, just kind of a little pointer there. Change the direction of the hair fibers as you go up, and you'll get more convincing looking strands. All right. A couple of different ways to do the eyelashes too. Notice I kind of went through and did each one. I think that that's a nice subtle technique. Another technique is where people like to go down here and then come out, right? So just make sure that you're keeping your densities pretty much the same as you're doing it. You don't have to do that. You can do boop and then that. Just kind of depends on what kind of style you want to get and what type of eyelashes they have. Bottom of the eyes. Yeah. Now, one thing that you might do just for some visual interest, you know, define parts of the face with dots too. I like to do that. I like to do that a lot. Okay. And this is where the fun begins. Okay, this is really where the hair. What up, Jake? This is where the hair shapes really come around. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically imagine that I'm stacking hair up this shape first before I break and go to the other side of the shape. All right, so that might look like this, or I'm going backwards. And I'm moving, and I'm basically forming like bent lines going backwards. I'm going to wrap that shape as I go back. All right, and it's going to make, you know, something nice like that. Now, some of these shapes open up a little bit more, and that's okay. I can always go back in later and refine. If I had an eraser, you better believe I'd be using my eraser later on. But right now, I'm just using chalk pastel, and so I'm just flying by the seat of my pants, baby. Okay, so just like I defined the lines going the one way, now I'm going to do the same thing going the back way toward the back of her head. Now, I've drawn this young lady a couple of times from 2 angles, and so I'm pretty familiar now with the way that the hair is wrapping around her head. But I'm going to go ahead and explain a couple of things that I'm doing. So always, as I'm thinking about the hair wrapping around her head, I am thinking about building them in chunks, and chunks like triangle shapes. Not always, but for the most part, hair follows that rule. Okay, there's that. And the way that she's got it, she's got this real pretty kind of up thing here, where it kind of bumps back here, a little bead in the back of her head. And then she's got, so notice there's going to be 3 different directions of hair. So hair is going to be coming from up here and down. Hair's going to be wrapping back. And then there's kind of this bonus hair, kind of following the same thing, but it's kind of doing its own thing as well. In fact, some of these lines go out like this. There we go. So there we go. Yeah, that's coming along. It's coming along real nice, real swell-like. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start drawing the triangles, but this time they're going away a little bit. This time they're going away a little bit. And that's just because the hair particles are opening up away from her head. And so I want to make sure that I get that nice curl in there by doing some reverse triangles. Oh man, makes me think of jiu-jitsu. Oh man. Oh, I'm so excited to train jiu-jitsu one day. One of these days. Yeah. All right, here. Now I'm not going to get in here and draw every single hair fiber. I think that that'd be a little laborious. But essentially what you're able to see is that I'm drawing upside down kind of squiggly triangles. And that's what's giving me the hair shape going down like that. Okay. Now I'm going to wrap it up by just detailing some ear business. So ears, I typically like to draw ears starting off straight lines and then getting a little wiggly as I go on. You know, it's kind of it's got a little ear dish in here. And just like that. Goes up and around. Kind of follows the shape in the back. Now people have all different kinds of ears. There's about as much variety in ears as there is in noses. Ears are pretty diverse, especially the way that things do. But here's the one thing that I've never been called out on. I've done a lot of portraits in my life. When I was in my early 20s, I did a summer internship with a portrait painter out of Dallas, which was cool. No one has ever once in my entire life said, hey, that doesn't look like so-and-so's ear. You know, and I was like, oh no, shame on my household. Like, that doesn't look like their ear. Like, no one has ever said that to me in my entire life. So I think that the ear is one of those places where you've got a little leeway, where I wouldn't beat myself up too terribly much if it doesn't look like that specific ear. But try to get close. Try to get close. So there you go, guys. That's kind of the portrait of the day. Homie Jake, I'm glad you're here with me, brother. That's the lesson for the day. This is pretty much how you draw a side profile. I taught you some of my secret techniques that I like to use, especially when I'm doing and drawing pretty females like this. I want to make sure that I'm doing nice fine details as well. You know, the eyes here, there's a lot of folds in there, being real delicate with my line weight, but also the direction of my lines, things like that. So thank you all so much for watching. If you're on YouTube and you want to get more of this stuff or just give me some support, throw a thumbs up down there on one of the videos, hit the subscribe button. If you're on Instagram, thanks for chilling out with me. I'm glad that you're here. If you do decide to draw your own portrait or have questions about what I covered, shoot me a DM. You're all welcome to. And same goes for y'all homies on Facebook. So thanks so much for spending part of your week with me. I'll be back on Thursday, where I'll do some fun freestyle portraiture kind of like this, but more of a finished piece. So hope you're all well, and I will see you next time.